Who are you? I ask my English composition students this every time we start a new semester. And the reason that I do this is because you cannot become a good writer until you understand yourself. Welcome to the Julia Amante channel. If we're just meeting, I am Julia Amante, and today what we're going to talk about is how to become a better writer by understanding yourself, by understanding who you are. So let's get started. So as writers, we write about people, right? We write about characters. In order to understand characters and in order to understand what makes these characters tick so that we can create believable characters, we have to understand people. And in order to understand people, we really need to understand ourselves. We might as well start with what we know, right? We might as well start with ourselves. Now, there was an interesting presentation that I watched. So this was a presentation by Michael Haig. And I was at a writer's workshop, and I hadn't heard of him before that, but he was talking about, he'd worked with Michael Vogler and talked about, characterization and all that, and the hero's journey. And so I hadn't heard of him, but I found him to be fascinating and super interesting. And so then I went back and read more of what he was writing and listened to more of his, presentations and speaking about characters. And what he was saying was that a character, okay, so at the beginning of a story, a character has an identity, okay, and we all do as well. So this identity is there's sort of like masks, right, that the character wears. And what happens is the people on the outside, they only see this identity. Now the character doesn't do it, and neither do we on purpose, not really, right? So we know when we leave the house, we have to be professional. We have to be polite to other people. So there are some things that we do know. And so we make sure that we have that persona, right, as we go out into the real world. And the character does it as well, but it's a little different for characters. For characters, it's like they really believe in this identity. So if they believe that they are a nice person, if they believe that they are dangerous, whatever they believe, right, this is their identity at the beginning of the story. And so there's a lot of characters. For example, there might be a character, especially in romance novels, you tend to see this a lot, where the male character especially might have sort of this negative view. Maybe he was a doctor and somebody died because he didn't do what he was supposed to do. So he has this negative perception, or maybe his child died because he wasn't able to save him, and so he has this view of himself as just not being trustworthy. So he doesn't want to get involved in relationships, right? Because he's afraid that he's going to hurt somebody. So this is the image, the mask, the persona that this character has, and this is at the beginning of the story. And so what Michael Haig says is that every character, every person has these masks over their faces, right? Their eyes, and they go out into the world being this person. So you, as the writer, your job is to challenge this, because this is not the character's true essence. And what we want to do is we want to move our characters from this fake person that they think they are and that they project to the world, to the character's true essence, who they really are. So it's not just the plot and going through. Yes, they're going to change. They're going to grow, and they're going to go through their plot. But internally, we need to actually move the character from their identity, right, this fake identity that they have, to who they really are, their true essence. And if we can manage to do that, it's going to be a compelling story, because not only will we have moved from plot, moved the character through the plot, but we will also have made an emotional connection with the reader based on how this character changes. And for romance especially, I thought this was very interesting, because what makes us fall in love with someone else, right? So if you think about what makes us fall in love with someone, it's usually that they can see beyond that fake identity that we project to everybody else, and they can accept and love our true essence, who we really are. And once we find that one person who really, really understands us, who can really see who we really are, then we fall in love with that person. Okay, so for romance writers, that was a really wonderful tip to have, because you want each other to see who they really are, to see that true essence of their personality. So back to who we are. So let's talk about understanding ourselves a little bit better. So we are very similar to our characters, right? We all have our own motivations. We have our values. We have our daily beliefs about things. And this is what's going to, these are the beliefs that we carry into the world, right? So if I believe, like I said, I am not a good person, or maybe I am a good person, or I'm a person who rescues people, I'm a person that whatever you view yourself as, and that's what you're going to go out there and do. The other interesting thing, I don't know if it's really related to this, but I really liked it, so I'm going to share this, is that Michael Haig mentioned that a character will do anything to protect that identity, right? So they don't want to show their true essence, or they don't want to really expose themselves that way. They will do anything to try to fight and keep their identity. And really, I think we as real people do as well, right? If this is who we believe we are, then we want to maintain that. We want everybody to see that part of us, and we'll do anything to try to keep that identity and not lose it, right? So what happens to characters and to people as well is that if you challenge that identity, what can happen is that the person or you can experience an identity crisis, right? So you want to, that's why you want to hold on to that identity as strongly as you do, because when, that identity crisis actually leads to you accepting, acknowledging, and living your true essence of who you are. So it's important for us to kind of dive deep. And I know I experienced a little of this in my writing. So when I started writing very early, right? So I think I was about 19 years old. And when I joined an MFA, and I had published before I actually went back to get my master's degree in writing. I'd already published and sold books, and I was doing well. The only reason that I went back to school was because I wanted to teach. And I had given presentations, and I had been invited to colleges to speak, and I really liked it. And I thought, you know what? I think I really want to do this more than just on a guest level. I really think that making an impact on students on a deeper level by being there every day and being able to share what I know about writing was going to be better. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go get my master's degree. And so I did. But one of the things that, I guess the identity crisis that I had, so I saw myself as a successful commercial author. And I was very happy. And everybody I really knew and came in contact with were all commercial writers, and they were all doing well. And those are the type of books I like to read. Well, when I went to the master's program, one of the things that ends up happening, at least to me, is that a lot of the people that are there are not really wanting to write commercial fiction. They're wanting to write literary novels and literary fiction and poetry and things that I wasn't doing, right? So that's not what I was writing. So there's a sort of a bias against commercial fiction that, you're not really writing good writing. It's not good writing. It's not writing that is valuable. It's just commercial fiction. It's not worth anything. And so what we really want to write is we want to write literary fiction. That's what most people were writing there. So for a very short time, I kind of questioned, and I thought, am I just writing junk? Is it worth my time to be writing these type of books? Am I just really not a good writer? Should I be writing more literary type novels? And it was a very short identity crisis, because in the end, I knew who I was. And so if you don't know who you are as a writer, you could get led in different directions, right? So you need to understand, why is it that you want to write what you want to write? It really didn't matter when it came down to it, once I really kind of evaluated if they were right or if I were wrong, and I decided they were absolutely wrong for me. And to say that one type of writing is good writing and one type of writing is not good writing is really just kind of ridiculous, because it's not true. And a lot of the literary writers maybe publish their book and they may get a few readers, but a lot of them don't impact as many people as, let's say, commercial fiction does. So in my heart, I wanted to write Latino, at the time, Latino romances and Latino women's fiction, because this was what I didn't have when I was growing up. So when I was looking for books to read, just fun books, not the literary books, but when I just wanted to go to the bookstore, I just wanted to go to the library as a young teenager, and I wanted to pick up something that reflected my culture, or at least a culture, Latino culture in general. It didn't have to be specifically mine, but just things that I was familiar with. I didn't find that, and so I wanted to write those type of books. And I thought, you know what, because I know what I want, and I know what my values are, and I know what my goal is as a writer, I was able to not have that identity crisis and just kind of avoid that and say, you know what, these people are following their path. I'm following my path. They're both good paths. It's just that not every path is going to be the same for every writer. And so it's important for us to understand that, like, why are you writing? What are your goals? Who are you writing for? Okay. So I knew that I wasn't writing for a literary crowd. I was writing for the average person who really wants to pick up a novel that shows some representation, and it's also just fun to read, right? It's a fun book. It didn't have to be a book that had, humongous words that people didn't even understand what those words meant. So it was very helpful to understand exactly who I was and what I wanted. So I'm going to give you some questions, and I'm also going to post my blog, because I did blog about this earlier this week. And sometimes you want to have this in writing. This is one that you definitely, I think, want to have in writing. I would go into the blog and look at these questions, write them out, and answer the questions, because I think it'll help you to determine really who you are. And I had one comment on the blog from someone who said, this is a really good question to ask about your characters too, because it helps you to understand your characters better. So I'm going to read them, and then I'll just explain them. And then again, I'm going to post the blog for you to go and click on it and answer the questions, print it out, whatever, and then answer the questions. Okay. So the first one is, what do you value? Why do you value that? And just kind of go deep. Okay. So not like, yeah, I value my life, I value my religion. Just kind of go deep. Okay, if you do, like for example, let's say that you value financial security, right? So most of us do. So that might be one, but it might not be your huge value, but it might be one of your values. So go deep into that. Like, okay, why is it that you value financial security? Maybe because you didn't have financial security growing up, and you said, I'm going to make sure I have this. And so if that's true, then you go deeper than that. So yes, I value financial security because I didn't have that growing up, and I wanted to make sure that I did have it as an adult. But why do you feel that? Like, why is it important? Well, because maybe you didn't feel in control of your life back then, because your parents didn't have money, or maybe it made you feel vulnerable, or maybe it made you feel, I don't know, right? So go in there and think about it and say, okay, this is what I value, and why do I value it? And usually it comes back to a way that it makes you feel. So just kind of go through that and answer that as deeply as you can. The second question is, what makes you feel alive? And where do you get your energy or refill your emotional well? So that's important as a writer, because we want to understand, like, what is it that makes us tick? What is it that makes us feel creative and want to work, right? So it could be something simple. It could be just being out in nature. It could be going on a walk on the beach, or it could be any number of things. Maybe just doing some artistic or listening to music, but it makes you feel like you're alive. And why does that make you feel that way? Again, it's just kind of understanding who you are and how you respond to things that make you happy or not happy. Okay, the third question is, how do you make decisions? So specifically, do you make decisions analytically, using logic, I guess, or do you make decisions based on emotion? So we're all a little bit different, and it's good to understand, like, how you do that, right? So for example, I think I tend to be kind of analytical. I was just recently told that not too long ago, that I just kind of think through everything. So if I'm going to make a decision, I research everything, I think about it, and I ask questions, why, right? Why should I do this? Why should I not do this? And so before I actually make a decision to do something. And, other people, maybe my dad, for example, was the complete opposite. The man did everything on emotion. We lived in New York until I was about 5 years old. And at that point, one of his friends was moving to California. And my dad just decided, well, you know what? I'm going to move to California too. And so he sold everything and packed everybody up, started moving to California, didn't really even plan on anything, didn't even look and see if he had enough money. When we got to about Nebraska, he ran out of money. So he was unable to continue to California. He didn't have any money. So instead of getting a job in Nebraska and saying, okay, I'm just going to sit here, he said to my mom, you just wait here with the baby and I'm going to go back to New York. I'm going to work at my job a little longer and I'm going to make more money and then I'm going to come back. So this is what he did. He went back. Luckily, his boss hired him back for a few months. He made money. He came back to Nebraska and they continued down to California, which is where I ended up growing up. Now, is that crazy? It's just crazy. I just can't imagine just deciding based on emotion and excitement that you're going to move your entire family to another state and not even plan it. Just say, I'm going, let's go, So anyways, how do you make decisions? Maybe you do make decisions based on emotions. Maybe you think things through a little bit more, but tell me how you do, or tell yourself how do you make decisions in life? The next question is, what do you see as your mission in life? It doesn't have to be anything related to writing, though that could be, like my mission is to write amazing stories, but just in life in general. Like for me, I would say that one of my missions is to teach. I find that meaningful, right? That brings meaning to my life, to be able to teach and guide other people and have that connection with students. So I like that, and I think that is one of my missions in life, is to be a teacher. I know other friends that are, one of their missions in life is just to help animals that are stranded or out, and then they try to find homes for dogs and cats that are, run rescues, so take them to the rescues. So everybody has, I think, a different mission. And again, it doesn't have to be tied to your writing. I think for us, if you are a writer and I'm a writer, one of the missions in life is to be able to tell stories, right? To entertain people, to educate people if you're a nonfiction writer. And so obviously writing, but think kind of broader than that. What else do you think is your mission in life, and how are you achieving that? How are you planning to, or how are you achieving that goal? Okay, the next question is, I think we're up to number 5 now, is there something that you are trying to prove to someone else in life? So at first you might say, no, not really. But then kind of think about it. Like, one of the things that I see a lot as a college instructor is I see a lot of students stressed over their grades. And you probably think, well, yeah, of course they are. All students do. And yes, to a point. But I see some that are very, very, very driven. And sometimes I wonder, like, who are you're trying to prove that you are this amazing student to who? Like, to your parents, maybe? Like, what is driving them to do this, right? I mean, they all want to get good grades, but some are very intense about it and get stressed, and they'll even cry, right, if they don't get the grade that they want. And you wonder, like, why? It's really, it's just a grade and it's okay, and it's the material that you're learning that's important, but not for some students. So what is it that you're trying to prove, and to whom? Like, are you trying to, if you're writing a novel, is it for yourself? Is it because you're trying to show somebody else something? And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just something that's interesting to understand, like your motivations, why you do certain things. And again, because the better we understand ourselves, the better we're going to be able to write characters. If you can understand what's driving you, you're going to be able to create a character, because you know that something should be driving this person. If I guess wanting to prove to my parents that I am just as good as my brother, let's say, right? Then how is that coming across? Like, what is it that you're doing in order to be able to prove this to your parents, or maybe to your spouse, or maybe to society in general? Who knows, right? Is there something that you're trying to prove, and is that driving you towards whatever goals that you're aiming at? The next question is, who's in your social circle and why? So a lot of times the people that we surround ourselves with tell us a lot about ourselves, right? Like, who are your friends? Who are your the people that you choose to. Like family, we don't choose it very much, right? So but our friends we do. So what kind of friends do you have? What kind of people are in your social circle, and why are they in your social circle? What do they bring out in you? What do they provide you with? What do you provide them with? Why are they there? Why are they your friends? So the next question after that is, if you asked your friends who they think you are, what would they say? And would you agree with that? Okay, so sometimes that's interesting. I don't even think if I'm brave enough to do that, but yeah, who do they think you are? And is that true? And this might give you a little bit of an insight onto the identity that you are projecting out. And it might be something that you consciously are, right? So they might say you're a very nice person, and that's who you want to be, and that's who you believe you are. And so that might make you very happy, because you might say, oh good, they see me for who I really am. And they might be or it might not be. But it's interesting, I think, to find out, like, what is it that people are seeing, and do you agree with what they're seeing? Okay, so you might be wondering then, how is knowing all this, how is knowing all this about myself going to make me a better writer? And like I mentioned, what you are shooting for is to really understand things like motivations and desires and why we do certain things. And I think the better we know ourselves, like I mentioned, the better we're going to be able to be happy with what we are writing. But it would help you to, choose a genre. It's going to help you really situate yourself and where you fit into this literary world. And not only that, I think that one of the important things about really understanding yourself is that you're going to be able to portray that in your novels. Okay. I don't know if you've ever read a book and you close the book and you're thinking, oh my God, this author really, really understood loss. They really understood what it was like to lose someone we love, right? Well, why? Because maybe internally this person has gone through that. They've either lost a person or they've lost an idea, a dream that they had. So, and they were able to take that internal loss that they had, right, and transfer it to the book. And so I think the more you do that, the more you understand yourself. Like I have written a lot of books that have to do with identity, and there's a reason for that, right? Because I have had that sort of issue in my life of identity, because I did have immigrant parents who, from a different country, and I grew up differently, but I also lived in the in the United States, right, with its own culture. And so sometimes I didn't really feel part of one culture. I really didn't feel part of the other. I didn't feel like accepted by either one. So it kind of makes you question, like, okay, what is your identity? Like, who am I really? Am I this? The really interesting thing is my parents are from Argentina. So I went to Argentina when I was 17. And I thought, okay, finally, I'm going to really fit in here. I'm Argentine. I'm going to fit in with this. It's like, no, I wasn't, because as soon as I got there, everybody said the American girl. So it's like, okay, well, I didn't really fit in here. I didn't really fit in there. So these identity questions and issues were part of my own psyche. So when I started writing, of course, it's going to be a theme of my novels, because this is something that I dealt with. Now, I can look at this now kind of having evaluated all that and see that's why. I don't think that I really understood that when I first started writing. I think it was just, I didn't think, oh yeah, this is my identity. It was just sort of a subconscious thing. But looking back now at my novels and seeing this theme within these novels, more than one, I can say, well, this is why, right? Because I was working out that issue in my mind. And so, of course, I portrayed this in the books that I was writing as well. So there's, it's really great to do this, to kind of do these exercises, to get to know who you are, and see, how you can transfer this into your writing, of course, to make it seem logical. You don't want to just add something in there just for the heck of it. Yeah, like, I was really sad because this happened, so I'm going to add this to the book. No, but you want it to sound logical, and you want to be able to pull from your own life when you're writing your novel, so that it sounds realistic. It sounds like it sounds real. You want to make your characters as real as possible. And if you can take your own experiences and be able to, to use them in a way for your stories, your characters are going to feel more alive, and your stories are going to be more realistic. Okay, so I hope that this helped you today. If it did, please hit the like button and share this with your other writing friends. And thank you for being here. I will see you again next week.